Alright, so our character is looking pretty great at this point, moving around, crouching, all that good stuff, but the one thing we're missing are footsteps. And implementing footsteps in Unreal properly is not the easiest thing in the whole world, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. So as always, if you're following along, feel free to pause, but yeah, we're going to make this task called Implement Footsteps, and we have a description here is quite a mouthful compared to usual, because there are a lot of substeps to this. So we need to create what's called a physical material, because footsteps need to sound different depending on what surface you're walking on. And then we're going to need sounds for each of those surfaces. And we're going to have to make what's called audio cues for each of the surfaces, along with all the other audio framework that Unreal needs to process sounds properly. So yeah, I know this description is quite a bit, but just bear with me and we'll tackle each part one at a time. Also be sure to set it up as an art and engineering task, and put it under our trusty player character epic, and then we can drag it into our board. We'll go to our board, and throw it into progress, and we can get started. So the first thing we need to do is to open up our project, and we're going to have to go in there and make what's called some surface types. And what that is basically we're going to declare each of these different surface types you see in the description: concrete, dirt, glass, all that kind of stuff, because we want the player to be able to encounter different surfaces in our game and have them interact differently with them. So to do that, we're going to open up the project settings and just search for physical, and then our surfaces will come up here. And as you can see, we have a bunch of different options for surfaces. And what we're going to do is just fill in the ones we're going to implement in alphabetical order. And this doesn't necessarily need to be done this way, it just makes it a lot easier. So as you can see, I'm just typing them all in, nothing special. But yeah, we want to make sure we have all these, because things like impact effects, footstep sounds, all sorts of stuff will rely on this system that we're setting up right now. Alright, so we're going to double check to make sure we have it all typed in correctly, and it appears like we do. So make sure if you're following around, yours matches mine, or else you're going to run into issues. So now our next step is we're going to go into our plugins, and we don't want HSS, we want CCS Core, because we're going to use this for every project we make moving forward. And we're going to make a folder called Physical Materials. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially a material, but it has physics properties to it. And we want to make it a child of the base physical material, and you can call it PM underscore concrete. We're just going to go in alphabetical order. And we're just going to duplicate this over and over again, and just make one for every single one of these. And you'll notice I'm going to run into some source control issues here. And if you get a pop-up saying that your source control is disconnected or any of that weirdness, just close out and reopen. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll just skip ahead until I have the engine reopened. And right here, we're just utilizing the mark for add in Unreal, so we don't have to do it later in Perforce, because as you can see, it errored out and didn't add those last two. So now we'll just continue doing this, and I'm probably going to get more source control errors, and if that does happen, I'm just going to skip ahead until it's all fixed. Okay, so yeah, if you get more of them, don't worry about it. I probably got them too and just edited them out. So no worries there. We're going to keep going. So we made ice. Now we'll make metal. And now we have mud. And then we will make sand. And yeah, I think that the source control plugin just gets freaked out when you're duplicating and making a whole bunch of things really quickly. Yeah, you see again, we have another issue with source control, but I'm just gonna skip ahead because I'm sure you guys can process closing down the engine and reopening it without me. So we have water, and last but not least, wood. Alright, so now we have all our physical materials made, and we can go into full screen and configure them. So we just want to click into every single one of them. You'll notice me doing this a whole bunch of times throughout this video. It's just easier to do it this way because then they'll automatically open up one after the other. But one word of caution, if you're on a really old computer, this might give you some performance issues. So if you're running into issues like that, just open them one at a time. But all we're going to do in here is go down to that surface type and just plug in the corresponding surface. So this one's water. We go down here, water, save, exit, and we're just going to do that over and over again. So we do that for stone. And the hotkey for saving, by the way, I know I've said this before, but it's Control S. So that'll make things a little bit easier. But yeah, that's all this is going to be, just basically doing the same thing over and over again for all these different surface types. So get used to that, because we're doing the exact same thing for the sound cues in a few minutes. Alright, gravel, all good. Grass, looking good. The glass surface type, which comes up more than you would think. And last but not least, concrete. And now that we're done with the physical materials, we can go start making our audio stuff. So we're going to go to our CCS content and make a new folder called Audio Library. And then we'll step into there. And we're going to make a folder in here. And we're going to call it Sound Cues. And we'll click into that. And then we'll make a folder in here called Footsteps. And this is where we're going to put the sound cues for footsteps. So we'll go right in here, audio, sound cue. And we'll call it SC underscore footstep concrete. And we'll actually take a step in here and figure out what this looks like. So basically, a sound cue allows us to do a whole bunch of things like randomize certain sounds, specify sound classes, attenuation settings, all that good stuff. So to get these working, we need to make a few different sound classes, I'll say. So first, we're going to make a folder called attenuations. And I'm impressed I spelled that right the first time. Sound classes. And we're going to go to audio. And we're going to make a sound class mix. And this is basically our overall mix that we're going to use for the game. So we can just call it SCM default. And for sound classes, these are exactly what it sounds like, just classes of sound. So you want to have just an all audio one. So that's what we're making now. It's basically every other sound class will branch off of this. So we'll just duplicate it and we'll make our footstep class. And a lot of people would like to group footsteps in with other gameplay sounds. But if anybody has been playing shooting games for their entire lives, they know that everybody complains about footstep audio. So I think it's definitely worth having its own class so you can tweak it easily. Alright, so we have that all good. Then we have our attenuation. And this is actually going to be very important for us. And I'll explain that more a couple of lectures from now when we do our design discussion on the old version of Hide, Seek, Survive. So after that, we'll make concurrencies. And this is kind of what it sounds like. It governs how many sounds can be playing at the same time. Well, sounds of a certain class, that is. And basically how you filter out those sounds. So we'll call it SCO underscore footsteps. And again, we're making something for footsteps for every single one of these, just because footstep audio is incredibly important. It's very hard to get right, but we're going to do our best. And we go into our cue here, and we put it in the footsteps class and give it the footsteps attenuation. And now we're going to plug in a random node, and we'll save. And we just want to have this set up before we start duplicating it. And now the video will look a lot like it did with the physical materials, with me just duplicating this over and over again. And I think I'm going to skip ahead until this part is done. I feel like you guys can handle just duplicating it and copying the same process, and just make sure you don't miss any. Alright, I have them all entered now. So now we can get out of here. And the next step is going to be to actually get the sound files that are going to play. So to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is set up our audio folder in here and a documentation folder. Because if you're going to rip audio from the internet, even if they have the correct license, you absolutely have to put the attribution in the credits of your game. To clarify, in the final shipped version of this game, I'm going to swap these placeholder sounds out for asset pack sounds that are more organized and sound more similar. But the process I'm using now is completely valid if you needed to use free sounds. So we'll just make an Excel sheet, and we have asset maker and asset name, and we're just going to fill all this in. So we want to make sure that everything isn't bolded, and we're just going to put in everything we're using in here for the entire project. So we have Epic Games, Unreal Engine 5.3.2, and we can also specify that it's built from source. We don't have any of our own functionality in there yet, but we could. Alright, then we have Microsoft Visual Studio 2022, Blender 3.5, Mr. Mannequin Tools by Jim Croovy, and last but not least, we have the Animation Starter Pack by Epic Games. And next up, we're going to go into File Explorer and go back to our non-engine content and create folders for all of these different materials. So audio, and we want to put footstep sounds. And again, I'm going to skip ahead until I make all the folders. Alright, so we have all our folders. Now we're going to go into a browser tab and go to freesound.org. You can just Google it like I did. And there's my account. So you're going to have to go in here and make your own account, because it's not going to let you download anything unless you have one. And you want to just go right to the landing page, and we're going to go find some sounds now. So we have concrete footsteps. I'll show you guys as an example. And you see I'm turning on my desktop sound so you guys can hear along with me. So that one sounds pretty good. But we want to select Creative Commons, because that's very important. From a licensing perspective, we only want to download sounds that have the Creative Commons license. And as you can see, this pack seems pretty decent, so we're going to take it. Alright, so how we attribute this, we go in here, and we have Yodo Daman234. Shout out to him. And we just say freesound.org. And then for asset name, we take the asset names that we are going to download. So concrete footstep 1 through 4. And what I like to do to make sure I get all of them is to open every one in a new tab, and then just close the tab as I download it. And then we just go through and download all of them, close all the tabs, and we move on to the next one. So I'm obviously not going to show me checking all of these sounds because then we'll be here all day. But I will show you copying this in. So we have our 4, and we copy and paste it into this folder. Alright, so me from the future, I am all set, and you can see on the right there all the sounds I took. And one last thing I want to mention is if you go onto the individual sound, you'll see a get attribution text prompt there. And it is very critical that if you are going to use this in a shipped game, make sure you copy this exact text and put it in your credits. For now, I'm just writing them down because they're placeholders, but if you're actually planning on shipping these sounds in your final game, then be sure to take the whole text or else you could run into some issues. With the Creative Commons license, you can use things for even commercial products without notifying the author, but you absolutely have to have that proper attribution text or else you could run into legal issues. Just don't want to see that happening to anybody, so please don't get sloppy and put this into your game if you're going to include these sounds as a part of it. Alright, so after that legal rant that I hope will make my lawyer friends proud, we're going to open the engine and import these sound assets. So to start that process, we're going to make a folder called Sound Wavs, and new folder in there called Footsteps. And again, we're going to make a folder for every single one of the different types. So I'll skip ahead until that's done. Alright, so now we have a folder for each of these, and I'll show you the import process for concrete. And yep, it's as simple as dragging them all in. And I'll skip ahead as I do all the other ones. Alright, so our sounds are all implemented. And now we're actually going to put these sounds into our various sound cues. And to do that, we're going to do what we did with the physical materials. And we're just going to open all of them up. And we will edit them from back to front. So I'll keep opening them. And I'll show you guys basically what we're going to do for one of them. And then just repeat that process over and over again for each of the different surface types. So pretty straightforward. And the first step is going to be to pull up the content browser and go to Sound Wavs for concrete. And just shift click them and grab them, drag them all in, add as many pins as we need to this random node. And all we're going to do is just plug these in. And it's that simple. And again, I'm just going to skip ahead while you repeat this process for all the other material types. Alright, almost there. So that's all done. Now all we have to do is add in Animation Notifies to trigger our footstep events. So we're going to go to the crouch walk animations, and we're going to add a notify, and we'll call it right foot notify. And these are different than the sync markers we made previously, but you basically follow the same process. So you just make this one the left foot notify, and just drag these exactly where the other ones are. So very straightforward. I am going to show me doing this for every single one because I feel like this is a little bit more involved. And it's not going to take as long because we only have 8 of them to edit. So I will actually show all this. So yeah, we just want to make sure that no matter what animation is playing, the footstep notifies are going to be triggered. And you'll see in the next one what we do with these is we can add a function to the animation blueprint that basically says whenever this notify is triggered, run this function. So that's how the footstep play function is actually going to be called. And speaking of that, that's what we're going to be doing next time. We're going to be making a whole bunch of C++ classes and even creating an audio manager component on our character so that we don't have to put all the play footstep logic in the actual character file and kind of crowd that up in a way that I really don't like doing. So that's why we're going to create our own component to handle that. But that'll be for next time, as this is the last thing we're going to do today. I know this was a lot and a lot of skipping around as well, so thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, if I didn't skip around a lot and showed everything in this video, it would have been well over an hour and a half long. And I feel like neither of us want that, so I think this is the best way to do it. Alright, so we're just finishing up this one. So we'll go right, then we have another left. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys are enjoying this series. I'm enjoying making them. I like showing people how to use Unreal. I know it was really hard for me to find reliable YouTube tutorials that showed C++ stuff. Because realistically, if you're trying to get a job working in Unreal as an engineer, you have to make your test games and your portfolio projects in C++, or else the hiring companies just aren't going to take you seriously at all. I know this because this is what happened to me initially. I started out making things in blueprints, didn't have a lot of success interviewing, and basically started working in C++, and then things turned around for me. So I'm hoping by following along with this class, you guys aren't going to have to go through that process, and companies will take you seriously right away. Obviously, we have a long way to go to getting you to know enough to be at the point where you can actually join a real engineering team, but we will get there eventually. I'm going to keep putting out 3 of these videos a week for the foreseeable future, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but I will let you know when it's time to start applying to companies if that's what you want to do. And if you just enjoy watching these videos for the sake of them, that's great as well. But yeah, for that crowd that isn't actually following along and doing all this stuff in Unreal, and is just watching this video for entertainment purposes, I've been trying to go a little bit faster throughout the past few videos, as we put in our last few notifies. So definitely let me know if you guys are liking that and finding this an okay format for those of you who are following along, like the tutorials. And with all that being said, thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.